And welcome to Second Chances at Lift FM 98.5, 103.3 FM, and 97.9 on your FM radio dial. And of course, we are worldwide at liftfm.com. We have a wonderful guest with us tonight, former Muslim, Mano Bakh. And Mano, we'd like to thank you for being with us here on Second Chances tonight.
Thank you for calling me. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Now, obviously, the fact that you were a former Muslim says that you were originally practicing the Muslim religion. So, if you would, why don't you give us a little bit of background of where you're originally from and things like that so we can understand who you are?
Originally, I was born in a Muslim family in Iran during the Shah, and I went to school and I went to mosque. And at that time, before 1979 revolution, Iran was a Muslim country, but it was a moderate Muslim country. You could have the freedom of choosing your religion. You could go to the church, you could go to synagogue, you could go to mosque, and anything that was westernizing was being promoted. Since 1979, when the revolution happened, of course, everything turned back to the barbaric time of 1400 years ago. When I was a young guy, I went to Italy for education, and over there I studied religion, and I noticed that Islam that is being practiced in Iran at that time was a moderate Muslim. The real Islam is being formed based on the hate and intimidation. And that is one of the reasons that I came up and I wrote my book, From Terror to Freedom.
Now, you mentioned Iran was a much different country prior to the revolution in 1979. Were you in Iran when the revolution took place?
Yes, I was in Iran. Yeah, I described that in the book. I was an officer in the Iranian Navy, and I was a high-ranking officer. When the revolution happened, all of a sudden, as if the rug was being pulled out of your feet, and everything crumbled. And of course, what I'm talking about, Iran prior 1979, was a good friend of the United States, was a good ally with the West. It was the only Muslim country that had the relationship with Israel. As a matter of fact, one of the main streets in Tehran was called Israel. So it was the country was in the verge of progression and getting westernization and all the good things that today you cannot find it.
Now, obviously, as an American in my early 40s, the thing that I could probably tell you about the Iranian Revolution is the fact is the United States had many prisoners over there, hostages, and if my memory serves me correct, they were taken during the President Carter administration, and the day that Ronald Reagan was sworn in, they were released. Is that correct?
Actually, Mr. Carter was president, and the Shah of Iran was the king of Iran and was ruling. Unfortunately, Carter's administration made a very wrong choice about Iran, and they chose Khomeini to come to the power, which actually opened the floodgate of the Islamization in the world and empowering Islam in the world. And of course, 52 Americans were taken for 444 days hostage because in surface they were demanding the Shah to go to Iran. And of course, that ended up with the freeing the hostages when Mr. Reagan came inauguration.
Yes. Now, it says here that Islam is a government of its own. Explain to me what you mean by that.
When you are talking about the religion, normally we feel about the spirituality of the religion, what you feel, what you hear, and what you want to pray. Islam is the only religion that is a combination of the two segments. One segment is the spiritual part of it, which is the five pillars of Islam, praying, fasting, Hajj, and etc. And the other segment is the Sharia law, is the way that you, as an obedient servant of Allah, you have got to follow every single thing that Allah told you to do. You don't have the rights of choosing anything. You don't have the freedom of speech. You don't have the freedom of choice. You don't have the freedom of religion. You have nothing. You have to follow exactly how it is prescribed for you. And as you know, right now there is a movement in America of banning the Sharia law in many states, because gradually we in America, we are getting educated that Islam is not a religion. Islam is a combination of the spiritual religion and the governmental side of Islam, which is the Sharia law.
Now, the book is entitled From Terror to Freedom, A Warning About America's Affair with Islam. And tell me how you decided to even put this book out in the first place. Tell me what transpired to make you do this book.
The fact is that when I noticed what happened to Iran prior to 1979, and I had to escape for my life and come to America, I noticed that certain things are happening in the United States and especially in Europe that has got lots of similarity of what was happening in Iran prior to the Islamic Revolution. Let me give you an example. In Iran prior to 1979, we enjoyed hearing every mosque being built at every corner of every city. And we thought the mosques that are being built is going to be a place of people to go to worship Allah, and they are going to keep the kids off the street and etc. When the revolution happened, every single mosque in Iran, rather than being house of worship, it turned out to be the house of war, with the ammunition bunker and with the guns, and the people would go there and get the guns. Now, 85 years ago, in America, there was only one mosque. Today, we have over 3,000 mosques all over the United States and several thousand mosques pending. My question is, why do we need so many mosques? Why? Where these Muslims are coming from? According to the statistics, there are only 7 million Muslims in America, which most of them, they are moderate Muslims. Because there is no moderation in Islam, my question is, where the money comes for this mosque? Why they are building so many mosques? Who are the imams that they are preaching? The imams are coming from the Islamic backward countries. They come over here and preach your children and mine to become jihadists. That is why I started to write the history of myself as what I have witnessed happening in Iran and what was going on in the world, and I call that From Terror to Freedom. And I urge everybody to read that to understand what is happening today in America and to the world.
Now, you do have a website entitled ConcernedCitizens.org, and you say that
it's concerned American citizens.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Concerned American Citizens.
AmericanCitizens.org.
Okay, ConcernedAmericanCitizens.org. And on that website, you say that the entire Middle East is in shambles. In your estimation, what would it take to bring a semblance of peace back to the region of the Middle East?
Well, in most of the Arab countries, as you know, there is actually a fight going on between the older generation with the heart for the Sharia law and the new generation that they have access to the tutor, to the computer, to the internet, to the Facebook, and they know the democracy. And this fight is going back and forth between the two generations. And of course, as you see, the leader of these struggle is Egypt, that Muslim Brotherhood is leading, and of course the younger people, they are defending their own democracy. I predict within the next 10 years there is going to be lots of bloodshed among these countries, among the older and younger. And the more internet use that we have, that they understand about the truth about the democracy, the actual democracy is going to take place on those days. I have cited that internet is the largest enemy has ever Islam has had, because with the internet the truth is being passed rapidly, and the people understand about the intimidation of Islam compared to the democracy.
Now, as we touched on in the beginning of our conversation, you grew up a Muslim, but eventually you renounced your faith. What were the circumstances where you just said that's enough?
The fact is that when you believe in religion, you have got to believe what is in your heart. We are talking about the feeling of a person, how you feel about the spirituality. When I notice that Islam is based on the hate and intimidation, and the first 300 years of Islam, there has been 700 different wars and the killing of the millions of the people, because the notion is either accept Islam or we conquer you. You have got to choose between death and Islam. So that's why I decided to go ahead and believe on something that is peaceful, not what is being hateful.
Do you see any parallels between the Iranian Revolution and the current situation in the Middle East?
I can give you the comparison of the two largest countries in that part of the world. Iran has got 2,500 years history of the kingdom, 6,000 years of the civilization. Egypt, the same, has got 6,000 years of civilization. None of them were Muslim. They believed in some other religion. In Iran, the people came to the street and they said, we don't like the Shah. Over there, the people came to the street, they said, we don't like Mubarak. They called the Shah to be a dictator. They are calling Mubarak a dictator. There's lots of similarity, all of them. And they were yelling for democracy, as if there was no democracy existed. That's exactly the same thing. Prior to 1979, no Iranian has heard the name of Khomeini. Khomeini came to power. We have heard very little about the Muslim Brotherhood. Watch my lips. Egypt is going to lead to the Islamization with the Muslim Brotherhood taking over. It would be a short term. It would not be a long term, because the people of Egypt would understand how that Muslim Brotherhood is going to bring them, rather than democracy, the dictatorship.
In your book, you suggest that the radical Muslims gain momentum by working behind the scenes to seduce and brainwash. On the Concerned American Citizens website, you also mention the inroads they are making in primary and secondary education. Can you talk a little bit more in depth about their tactics and what they do?
This is unfortunate that today in America, because of the economy, schools, they are lacking funds in order to go ahead fulfill the requirement that they have for all the hours that they are going to cover the education for the children. There are organizations like CARE in America that they come to the schools and they say, for these 4, 5, 6 hours that you are cutting the classes, we are going to bring you the curricula, and we call them Islam, to teach the people what Islam is. And by the way, we give to you also the books and the paperwork. And unfortunately, most of the schools, they fall into that trap, and they accept the curricula that is written by the Muslim to show Islam as a peaceful religion. They are feeding wrong information into the mind of the students at the age of 13, 14. That is unfortunate. This is happening in most of the school districts, especially in California and Texas.
The expansion of Islam in the East and West is quite different. Can you explain how Islam is expanding its influence in the West, and what are the
Then
social or political repercussions of it?
the documentation that we see in regarding Islam, there are two types. It's Islam for Muslims and Islam for non-Muslims. The Islam for Muslims is the black and white writing of Quran. The Islam for the non-Muslim is the interpretation of what is that, so they have softened that. So therefore, what you read about this peaceful religion, this is not the truth about what it is. It is written in order to fool the non-Muslim to fall for it. So that is why in Islam, in Quran, it says you cannot translate Quran in any other language but Arabic, because they don't want to have any interpretation. No matter where you are and you are praying as a Muslim, you have to pray in Arabic language, not any other language. That is why I have been explaining fully in the concernamericancitizen.org that what you read about Islam, be careful the sources, because those may be the Islam written as if for the non-Muslim to believe in it.
You also referred to the suicide bomber as the ultimate form of Islam. What do you mean by that?
In the basic differentiation that I would tell between Christianity and Islam, I would say that in Christianity, Jesus Christ sacrificed himself for the betterness of the mankind. Versus in Islam, you are an obedient servant of Allah, and Allah wants you to sacrifice yourself for him. This is a very conceptual differences between Allah and God, between Jesus Christ and God. Now, the fact of the matter is that if you sacrifice yourself in the way of Islam, which is jihad, you are being guaranteed a place in heaven. So in order to get to heaven, that has been described in Islam, how it is, with the 72 virgins, that is the ultimate position you can have, to become a jihadist and to sacrifice yourself for Allah.
We're visiting with the author Mano Bakh, and he's the author of the book From Terror to Freedom, a warning about America's affair with Islam. I want to talk about, in another article on your website, concernedamericancitizens.org, you state how Muslims have used underhanded and deceitful tactics with planning commissions and city councils to get mosques approved. How are the mosques transformed into houses of war?
Actually, if you Google search about the imams that have been convicted, you would see actually a very good link between the mosque and terrorism. There is a research being done by the Mid-East Quarterly, that they took 100 mosques on random in the United States, and they found 81% of them promoting jihad. Over 40% of them, they have got text promoting jihad. So the mosque do not have to look at as a house of worship as we see that it is in the church. Mosques are the center of the strategical planning for that community. Now, when a mosque is being built in any city, normally, according to the laws, they go to the planning commission. And what they do, either in the planning commission or the city council, they busload the people from far away positions to bring it in that city to go ahead and ask that we want a mosque. We have had several occasions in California that the very, very few people from the city had the voice to talk about the mosque, whether they want it or they don't want it, because there were busloads of the people coming from the faraway locations, and they were talking about the mosque that they've been built. And unfortunately, the law doesn't say that you have got to have only the residents to talk and decide about the mosque or about whatever planning is. They say whoever comes in the chamber has got the right to speak, and they have got to listen. So therefore, they bring the majority. In one of the cities, that there are 105,000 people, with only 150 families Muslim, there were over 500 people gathered, which over 60% of them were Muslims, talking about the mosque. This is how they do that.
You use the term in the book, the silent conqueror. Tell us what you mean by that.
What we are witnessing in America, unfortunately, we don't see it. For example, do you know that we have got stamps that it says in Arabic, Eid Mubarak? That means Happy New Year in Arabic, or happiness in Arabic. We have got stamps. We have got the meats. They are promoting halal, which is actually the kosher. Do you know that we have got the Sharia law financing? They are promoting that. Do you know that all these mosques that are being built and all the promotion that are being built in Arabic language?
Mm.
Do you know that I heard that over in Michigan, when you call a governmental office, it says that for English press 1, for Spanish press 2, for Arabic press 3. Isn't that a silence?
Mm. Why do so many American policies fall flat in dealing with the Islamic regimes?
Because in my opinion, because of the freedom of speech that you have, you can stand up and talk about anything and everything, and even you can badmouth the president. There is no reason why anybody cannot speak for anything and everything. But as soon as you speak about Islam, and as soon as you criticize the ideology of Islam, you go on a blacklist. They want to kill you. That is why, in my opinion, all politicians, they are weak. They are afraid to speak. Let me tell you, we had problem with bin Laden. We had problem with Al-Qaeda. We had problem with Major Nidal Hassan. But nobody is talking that what made Major Nidal Hassan, what made bin Laden, it was the ideology of Islam. They do not criticize the ideology of Islam. They only talk about the people. My position is, if really you want to fight the problem, go to the source of the problem. The source of the problem is not bin Laden, it's not Al-Qaeda, it's the ideology that makes it Al-Qaeda. It's the ideology that makes Major Nidal Hassan. Nobody talks about the ideology, and that's why they are afraid of.
Of course, you mentioned the death of Osama bin Laden, and that was certainly a victory for the West. But in your opinion, what message did this send militant Muslims seeking to destroy Western interest?
Let me give an analysis. during the World War II, it took us only about 3 years to get the Allied together to defeat Hitler. 3 years. It took us 10 years to find a man who doesn't have an army. And we are very proud about that one. And we call that a victory. Of course, I'm glad that bin Laden is killed. But the victory is the time when the ideology that made bin Laden could be eliminated. I'm glad that bin Laden is being killed. And the message was sent to the east, to the west, to the east, that, of course, we have got technology and we go ahead and fight. But it takes us 10 years. And you know what? It takes us 10 years with $1 billion. It took us 10 years with creating the Homeland Security because we cannot freely take a flight from one location to another. We have got to go to a strip search. That is the message that we send because we are scared. We are scared to talk about the ideology. I wish you go to the website concernamericancitizen.org and you will see that we tell about the latest and the greatest about how Sharia law is taking over in America and what we have got to do.
Our guest on Second Chances is Mano Bakh. And Mano, we'd like to thank you for coming on and sharing about your book, From Terror to Freedom, a warning about America's affair with Islam. We'd like to thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind sharing with us, why do you think more people have a hard heart toward Jesus? Close with that thought.
The truth of the fact is that human is being made to be a peaceful person. And that the peacefulness is the one that I believe that takes you closer to God, to whatever you believe. And in my opinion, when you compare that there is a religion that is based on the hate and total activity, which is beyond of the norm of the today's society, to the barbaric time of 1400 years ago, that makes you closer to the truth, that the divine of the truth that we are seeking for.
Mano, if you'd like to obtain a copy of the book, From Terror to Freedom, a warning about America's affair with Islam, how do you obtain a copy of your book?
From Terror to Freedom is available everywhere, including Amazon.com. Also in the Kindle, there's a digital From Terror to Freedom. They can search it everywhere in any bookstore, mostly in Amazon.com, and you can find it. And also, you can find it from my website, either from terrortofreedom.com or from the other website, the concernedamericancitizen.org. So bottom line, the book is everywhere. Amazon.com, from terrortofreedom.com, and concernedamericancitizen.org.
Mano, we'd like to... Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The important is you remember, from terror to freedom.
From Terror to Freedom. We'd like to thank Mano Bakh for being our guest here on Second Chances at Lift FM 98.5, 103.3 FM, and 97.9 on your FM radio dial, and, of course, always online at liftfm.com.